Many countries can be attacked quickly, but Iran is a very different kind of battlefield. With its vast size and strategic location between the Caspian Sea and the Persian Gulf, Iran cannot be treated like an ordinary target. The problem is not only Iran's size, but the shape of the land itself. In the west, the Zagros Mountains form a long natural wall that makes major military movement far more complicated. In the north and the south, Iran combines protective terrain with direct access to one of the most important energy choke points in the world. That is why Iran should not be seen as a flat expanse, but as a layered geographic fortress. In many parts of Iran, large-scale movement cannot spread freely, but is forced into narrower and more predictable corridors. In the center of the country, Dasht-e-Kavir creates a severe natural barrier for troops, vehicles, and supply chains. Farther southeast, Dasht-e-Lut shows that some parts of Iran are not only difficult to enter, but difficult for an outside force to endure. In ground warfare, terrain like this does not just slow an invasion, it increases its cost, risk, and vulnerability. That is why entering Iran does not mean crossing a single line of defense, but moving through several layers of terrain. From the west, any major ground force would be pushed into narrow passes, valleys, and routes far from ideal for a rapid advance. Even Tehran is not positioned in open terrain, but near one of the most important natural barriers in northern Iran. Its key cities and corridors are not spread randomly, but shaped by a landscape that already favors defense. The farther a war moves into Iran's interior, the slower it becomes, the longer its supply lines grow, and the greater its risk. Iran's size alone is a major obstacle, because wars inside a country this large are rarely fast. The deeper an outside force moves into Iran, the longer its supply lines become, and the more fragile the whole operation grows. Even with more than one direction of approach, every possible route still runs into the same problems: terrain, distance, and slowing momentum. That makes control difficult, because taking one important region does not automatically mean controlling the entire country. In Iran, territorial scale is not just a number on a map, but one of the main reasons a quick war becomes so difficult. That is why striking Iran from the air is very different from trying to defeat it on the ground. From the west, ground forces would not enter open plains, but a landscape of passes, valleys, and choke points. In terrain like this, armored strength and vehicle numbers matter less, because the land itself limits movement. And this is where Iran's defensive depth becomes critical, because its geography buys time to adapt, reposition, and respond. So the larger a ground war against Iran becomes, the more likely it is to turn into a long and expensive campaign. In a war like this, Iran does not need a fast victory. It only needs to make the attacker move farther, slower, and at greater cost. That is because defenders often gain an advantage when a fast war turns into a longer war of attrition. Iran's large geographic depth gives it room to disperse, relocate, and adapt, instead of absorbing every blow in one place. That is why pressure on Iran does not always translate into rapid control, because the landscape itself helps sustain resistance over time. And that is why long wars often favor the defender, especially in a country as large and geographically complex as Iran. Iran is not easy to disable quickly, because its major centers of population, industry, and strategy are spread across a very large space. That means striking one important region does not automatically shut down the whole state. In a country like Iran, infrastructure is not just about movement, it is part of national endurance. That is why damaging Iranian military assets does not automatically mean defeating Iran. And that is the core distinction. Striking Iran, defeating Iran, and occupying Iran are three very different levels of difficulty. Iran is difficult to defeat not only because of its terrain, but because its defensive depth can extend far beyond its borders. That means pressure can come from deep inside Iran even before an opponent reaches the country's inner core. Iran does not depend on one single line of defense, but on several layers of pressure working together. In a real campaign, an opponent would have to face Iran from far away and up close at the same time. This is what makes Iran so difficult to defeat. Its geography buys time, and its long-range weapons raise the cost of every step.
That is why Iran's strategy is less about open domination and more about denying an opponent a fast and decisive victory. Mobile launchers matter because threats can move, hide, and then reappear from a country this large. In a country as large and complex as Iran, knowing a threat exists is very different from being able to find and eliminate it everywhere at once. That is why defeating Iran cannot be reduced to destroying one site, because the threat exists in many forms and many locations. So the hardest part of fighting Iran is not beginning the war, but making sure the threat is truly gone. Iran is protected not only by mountains and deserts, but also by a maritime position of enormous strategic value. At Hormuz, Iran's geography intersects directly with one of the most important energy routes in the world. That means pressure from Iran does not end at its land borders, but can extend outward through the sea. For any opponent, that makes the problem much harder, because Iran forces war planning across land, air, and sea at the same time. The closer a conflict moves to Iran, the more it touches not just a large country, but one of the world's most sensitive strategic spaces.
That is why a major war against Iran would be expensive, not only militarily, but economically across the world. In Iran's case, local geography can quickly turn into international pressure felt far beyond the region. So Iran's deterrent power does not come only from weapons, but also from its place inside one of the world's most sensitive systems. When all of these layers are combined, Iran stops looking like a single target and starts looking like a deeply reinforced strategic space. And that is the real reason fighting Iran always means facing more than a single battlefield. In the end, Iran is hard to defeat not because of one single strength, but because many layers of strength reinforce each other. Striking Iran may be possible, weakening Iran may also be possible, but conquering Iran is a much larger challenge. Because in Iran, visible damage does not automatically become strategic control. Geography gives Iran time, depth gives it resilience, mobility gives it survivability, and Hormuz gives it global leverage. That is why Iran is so hard to defeat. It is not just a country, but a geographic and strategic fortress.